Hello everyone, and welcome to my Carian Spellblade build guide. There have been a lot of changes that greatly affected my previous build, the Carian Swordmaster, especially since the release of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. So, in today's video, I'm going to address these changes as well as reinforce our build with one of Shadow of the Erdtree's strongest additions, the Carian Sovereignty Ashe 4. We are also going to explore different sword sorceries so you can conquer Shadow of the Erdtree as a formidable spellblade. So without any further delay, let's get started. The centerpiece of this build is the Carian Sovereignty Ashe 4. This will transform your weapon into a magical greatsword to slam down your enemies. After that, you can use the skill button again to perform a wide sweep that can hit multiple targets in front of you. It deals 100% magic damage, so items like Magic Scorpion Charm, Magic Shrouding Cracked Tear, and Terra Magica sorcery will greatly boost the damage of this weapon skill. Carian Sovereignty is superior to Carian Grandeur in every way. Not only does it deliver monstrous amounts of damage, but it can also deal twice as much poise damage if you fully charge the Ashe 4, which is absolutely insane. It can deal up to 93 points of poise damage, enough to sense break most of the base game bosses, as they typically have a poise resistance of 80. However, since most of the DLC bosses have a poise resistance of 120, you can use the Stone Barb Cracked Tear in the Wondrous Physick Flask to increase your poise damage by 30%. This will boost Carian Sovereignty's poise damage to 120, allow you to sense break any boss in the entire game, including the DLC endgame boss, with a single fully charged Carian Sovereignty Ashe 4. You can also use the Glintblade Phalanx sorcery, which deals around 30 points of poise damage. If you add that to the poise damage from a fully charged Carian Sovereignty, you will be able to poise break most DLC bosses without having to use the Stone Barb Cracked Tear. Carian Sovereignty is certainly one of the strongest weapon skills right now in the game, but it's also very easy to obtain. You can grab it from a teardrop scarab inside a cave southwest of the Cathedral of Manus Matter. To access this region, you have to reach this point in Scado Altus, north of Morse Ruins. Jump down and travel through the underground area until you find a ladder that will take you to Bonnie Village. From Bonnie Village, travel north until you reach the Church District High Road Site of Grace, then follow the cliffside road southwest until you reach the cave where the teardrop scarab is located. The weapon you are choosing for this Ashe 4 doesn't influence how much damage you are dealing with this weapon skill. This is because Carian Sovereignty is a projection type Ashe 4, which means your weapon doesn't actually connect with your target. The only thing that influences how much damage you are dealing with this Ashe 4 is your weapon level, how much intelligence you have, and your weapon affinity. A weapon with the Magic Affinity will deal the most damage with this Ashe 4. You can use Carian Sovereignty on a wide variety of weapon types, however it is better to use it with great swords because they provide better hyper armor, so you are not easily interrupted while charging Carian Sovereignty. I was using the nice greatsword, but the Claymore is also an excellent choice because it is very easy to obtain from the early game and has very strong movesets. Greatswords are the best weapon type to use with Carian Sovereignty because they provide better hyper armor, but you can also use it with other weapon types like Curved Greatsword, Heavy Thrusting Swords, or even the Great Katana. The main issue with Carian Sovereignty is that it takes so much to fully charge this weapon skill to deliver its monstrous damage. So you are most likely to get interrupted in most encounters before you can land a fully charged Carian Sovereignty and its follow-up attack. In the past, we solved this issue by using the Glintblade Phalanx Ashe 4 to sense break our enemies and give us enough time to fully charge Carian Grandeur. However, Glintblade Phalanx received a heavy nerf in patch 1.12. It went from dealing 62 points of poise damage to 42 if you land its entire combo. It is still a viable weapon skill to use, but as an alternative, we are going to use the Endure Ashe 4. Endure will give you infinite hyper armor and a very strong damage negation to basically face tank any attack while charging Carian Sovereignty. Keep in mind that the Endure duration is not long enough to cover a fully charged Carian Sovereignty and its follow-up attack, so you have to be smart about when to use the Endure Ashe 4. I found using Endure during a boss transition phase or at the beginning of certain encounters is the perfect time to utilize this Ashe 4 to absorb the big blow while charging Carian Sovereignty. If you decide to use the Endure Ashe 4, make sure to use it with the Miséricorde dagger and the Magic Affinity. You are frequently breaking enemies' senses, and the Miséricorde will enable you to take advantage of this since it has the highest critical damage stat in the entire game. It is also important to mention that daggers in Elden Ring have a hidden critical modifier that is the highest compared to other weapon types. So even if you decide not to use the Endure Ashe 4, I will still recommend to keep the Miséricorde dagger in your build to land those devastating critical attacks after breaking your enemy's sense. In the original Carian Sword Master build, we had an impressive arsenal of conjured weapons like Carian Slicer, Piercer, and Adula's Moonblade. I recommend that you check out these sorceries, especially Carian Slicer. It is by far the highest DPS sorcery in the entire game, and you can absolutely decimate any boss with this sorcery alone. Try to use Carian Slicer with the run attack or the roll attack because that will significantly shorten the startup animation of this sorcery. Carian Slicer becomes extremely strong if you manage to max out your casting speed from dexterity, either by investing until you reach 70 dexterity or using items like the beloved Stardust. This will significantly shorten the cast time of Carian Slicer and make it even more deadly. My favorite sorcery in this build, however, has to be the Gavel of Haima. This will create a great hammer to smash your enemies, immediately knocking them down and dealing great AoE damage around the impact area. The optimal way to utilize this sorcery is to equip a second staff and chain cast Gavel of Haima from each hand and just keep pounding. It also deals decent stance damage, so you can expect to break enemy stance a lot more often when using Gavel of Haima. Finally, we have Loretta's Mastery. This is mainly to have some sort of ranged attack to deal with resistant enemies. It has an exceptionally long range, deals great damage, and you can use it while mounted. You can also charge it up to increase its damage. I truly enjoy playing with this sorcery, but sometimes one of the arrows hits the ground or geometry before it reaches its target. Try to use Loretta's Mastery while on ledges or open spaces to avoid this issue. We are using Carian Regal Scepter to cast our spells. In the first build I recommended Carian Glintstone Staff because it increases Carian sorceries damage like Carian Slicer and Adula's Moonblade. However, it does not boost either Gavel of Haima or Loretta's Mastery. So you are better off using Carian Regal Scepter, or if you have a large FP pool, you can opt to use Lusa's Staff since it has the highest sorcery scaling in the game, but consumes more FP. For this build we are using a few buffs like Terra Magica. This will place a sigil on the ground, and as long as you are standing inside, this will increase all your magic damage. Terra Magica was nerfed in patch 1.12, but still very much worth using. You should also use the Golden Vow Ashe 4 on a small weapon to boost both your damage done and damage negation for 45 seconds. You can also use the Golden Vow consumable for a slightly better buff, but you will have to gather materials to craft the recipe, which is in my opinion not really worth it. Carian Sovereignty consumes a lot of stamina to use. If you can craft a few pickled turtleneck or even a well pickled turtleneck, it will speed up your stamina regeneration and greatly improve your gameplay. For the Talismans, we are using Shard of Alexander to increase Carian Sovereignty damage by 15%. Godfrey Icon to boost charged spells and skills damage by 15%. Magic Scorpion Charm to increase all magic damage by 12%. For the final slot, you can use the Graven Mass Talisman to boost all sorceries damage by 8%. However, since we are frequently breaking enemy stance, you can also use the Dagger Talisman to increase your critical damage by 17%. You can also use the Blade of Mercy to boost all your damage by 20% after scoring a critical strike. For the Flask of Wondrous Physick, use the Magic Shrouding Cracked Tear to increase all your magic damage by 20% for 3 minutes. Alongside, you can use the Stone Barb Cracked Tear to increase your stance damage by 30%. Almost all DLC bosses have stance resistance of 120, so one fully charged Carian Sovereignty will absolutely destroy their stance, leaving them open for a critical strike or another fully charged Carian Sovereignty. However, more often I was using the Blood-Sucking Cracked Tear to increase all my damage down by 20%, but keep in mind that it will also drain 1% of your maximum HP per second. For the armor, I recommend using Rilana's armor set. It looks great and it is one of the very few armors that gives you exactly 51 poise, so you are not easily interrupted by enemies' attacks. However, if you are interested in boosting the damage of Carian Sovereignty even more, you might want to use the Spellblade armor set. Each piece increases the damage of Carian Sovereignty by 2% up to 8% if you wear the entire set, although it badly lacks the damage negation and poise. Another option is to use the Rakshasa armor set. It increases all your damage by 2% per piece, but also increases your damage taken by an equal amount. The most optimal starter class for this build is the Astrologer, but you can also make it with either the Vagabond or the Prisoner. For the stats, I have 55 Vigor. Anything between 55 and 60 is DLC appropriate. I also recommend that you use Morgoth's Great Rune to increase your maximum HP by 25%. 25 Mind to have enough FP for Carian Sovereignty and sorceries. 25 Endurance to have a medium roll with our current equipment load. 16 Strength and 12 Dexterity to use nice Greatsword. If you decide to use the Claymore, you will have to invest one more point in Dexterity. Carian Regal Scepter is a backloaded catalyst, which means you get most of your scaling at 80 intelligence. If you decide to take this build beyond 150, you can start by boosting Vigor, Endurance and Mind by a small amount. Reaching the hard cap of intelligence at 99 will also increase your overall damage. Perhaps investing in Face until 25 to be able to use Golden Vow incantation instead of the Ash of War. This is by far one of the strongest intelligence builds you can play right now in Elden Ring, and I hope you give it a try and let me know what you think. If you want to start playing this build from the early game, I recommend that you check out the Carian Sword Master build, as it contains all the information you could possibly need to start playing a Spellblade from the early game. This brings this guide to an end. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about this build or Elden Ring in general, please let me know. And if you enjoyed watching this video and would like to see more, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I included a small clip of the setup I used to defeat the DLC in-game boss because it is always a frequent question in my videos. Feel free to skip if you don't want any spoilers. Once again, thanks for watching and have a great day.